Hi, welcome to Record Time. Today on Record Time, we're gonna explore an interesting topic. And it feels like this one is gonna be a little bit playful. So, today's topic is what to remember or what to do when people are rude to you. And specifically, strangers. So, I don't know about you, but for me, whenever I encounter this situation in life, when a stranger is rude to me, it always stuns me. And it just shocks me so much because I never expect it. And usually I don't know what to do. I don't know how to respond to it. And then after, the exchange, the interaction is over, I replay that thing again and again and again in my head, and it just bugs me for the rest of the day for sure, and sometimes for days. And it just goes on, and I just think about it because it just bugs me. And I think about what I could have said and what I should have said, and I'll think of these sassy remarks I could have replied, and how I could have responded to that in the moment, which I never end up doing anything with those things because of course the moment has passed. So if that ever happens to you, that's kind of the context of what we're going to be exploring today through the records. So on that note, I am going to ask the records, the masters, teachers, and loved ones what they think about that and what we need to do, or what insight they have on what to do when strangers are rude. And as I'm tuning into the records, feel free to come into a calm state, a receptive state, and just allow yourself to relax and arrive here fully. So usually I'll they're inviting me to explain a little bit further how I respond to a stranger being rude. And so a lot of the times, I said something will happen, I don't expect it, I don't really know what to say, and then after the fact, I'm just so stunned, and then I get angry later, and I'm just like, why did they do that? Who talks like that? In what world is it okay to talk to a stranger like that? And so the masters, teachers, and loved ones are echoing that question back to us. In what world is it okay to talk to someone like that? In what world is that response, that rude response, the most correct response possible? And they're inviting us to play a game and to literally imagine, in what world, what magical, made up fantasy land would the way that person spoke or behaved, in what world would that be exactly the right way to respond? And they're saying to just make it a game and to have fun with it. And so to elaborate further on that, I think a lot of times when people are rude or when something happens, I know I try to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I'm like, that person, maybe they cut me off in traffic. And I'm like, oh, they might have had to go to the hospital. Or, I don't know. Yeah, it's oh, maybe they were in a rush. Or, oh, maybe they had a bad day and that's why they acted like that. And sometimes doing that while it does help kind of alleviate the stress that I feel after, sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes it's like, well, even if they were having a bad day, like they shouldn't have spoken to me like that. And so, or sometimes they're just so rude that even these like small, you know, allowances or this little bit of grace that I'm trying to give them in my own mind, sometimes it's not enough. And so they're like in those moments where you can't think of a real reason like why they would do that, or it still is not really justified whatever they did. They're like, make it bigger, you know, like make the reason bigger and make it more playful and really dive into like, in what world is that okay? So I'll give you an example. When I think when I think of like a stranger being rude to me, this is the thing I think of. So a few years ago, I was in New York and I was walking down the street, and I was just walking and I was with two of my friends. And it's a busy street in New York City. We're just walking. It's super cold outside and it's windy. We're all huddled up and we don't want to really be outside. We're like waiting to get to where we're going. And so we're walking, and this man so we're walking this way and this man is like walking the opposite direction. And he's walking 4 dogs in New York City. And I was just so surprised to see that, because I was like, why do you have 4 dogs in New York City? This seems like the worst place to even have a dog, because there's like no grass here. So it's like, aren't those dogs like miserable? What is even happening? It's such a weird sight to see. And so this man is walking, and of course I'm looking at the 4 dogs, because who wouldn't look at 4 dogs if there are 4 dogs walking to you, right? They're cute, so it's like you're looking at them. So I'm looking down at these 4 dogs, and my 2 friends are also looking down, because we're like, wow, 4 dogs, so cute. And as this guy's walking and I'm looking down, he goes, "Stop fucking staring at me!" And he like yelled that, and he got so close to my face. I was on the edge and my 2 friends were on the other side, so I was closest to him. He got like really close to my face and said that. And I was like absolutely stunned. I was like, what just happened? And I didn't speak for probably like 6 minutes after that happened. And he just passed us. He just said that and walked away. And I was just like, what the heck was that? Like, I just was so speechless. And even now, thinking about it, I'm still like kind of speechless, because I'm just like, why did he get so upset? And the thing that I thought, I was like, I wasn't even looking at him. I was looking at the dogs. I was looking down at the ground where the dogs were. So I was just like, what is his problem? And of course, the question I'd love to ask in that moment is like, in what world is it okay to just yell that at a stranger? And so now, the masters, teachers, and loved ones, the keepers of the Akashic Records, are inviting me to really lean into that question. And they're like, yeah, you tell us, in what world would that be perfectly acceptable? And just make it up. And so I invite you to do this with me. But I'm like trying to think, like, in what world would it be okay to yell that at a stranger? Stop fucking staring at me. It's like, what would the circumstances have to be for that to be like the thing to say? Like, it makes absolute perfect sense to say that. And so the thing that I'm thinking right now is like, well, like, what if he had like a crazy condition where, like, I don't even know, like, if he had this like condition, or if someone told him, like, what if he like went and visited some kind of like evil like warlock or something, and they were like, if someone stares at you, like, I'm gonna put a curse on you, and if someone stares at you for more than 4 seconds, you'll explode. And so what if that is what happened to that guy? And so, you know, he's walking down the street and he's in a city full of people, which it's like, that sounds super dangerous if like you're not supposed to be looked at. So I'm sure he's like super on edge walking down the street, like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine how nervous he would be. He's walking, and then he sees this kid, like, just looking at his dogs, and he's like, oh, they're looking at the dogs, but, like, you know, behind the dogs are my feet, and if they're looking at my feet, that's me, so I'm gonna explode if this person doesn't stop staring at me, so I just have to do everything I can to make them stop right now, or I will literally explode, according to this warlock. And so it's like, what would you do if that was you? If that was me, I absolutely would just be like, I would get up in that person's face, and maybe I would, like, pull something over my face so I'm not really up in their face, but I would be like, yeah, stop fucking staring at me, because I'm literally gonna explode. But I would leave off the explode part, because if I said that, they would definitely just keep staring at me. So yeah, in that world, that would make total sense. And this seems super dumb and really silly and kind of childish, because it's like, okay, well, like, you might be like, well, obviously, Mina, like, that's not the case. Like, he didn't visit a warlock, and he's not going to explode if someone looks at him for 4 seconds. Like, obviously, that's not going to happen. But, like, you don't know that. And I don't know that. What if that was the case? We have no idea, right? And I think that's their point, is like, you have no idea what is happening in someone else's reality. You just have no idea at all what someone else is going through. And I think, like, a lot of my, like, sweet friends and a lot of my spiritual friends tend to be really good at giving this, like, benefit of the doubt, where it's like, when you want to get mad, they don't get mad, because they're like, oh, well, you know, maybe this, and they'll just be able to make something very reasonable up on the spot, and it's like, oh yeah, well, that's true, maybe that is the case, and then, you know, your tension kind of subsides. But in those moments where you can't think of, like, a reasonable excuse, or, like, a reasonable benefit of the doubt, or just something that would make sense for why someone would do that, the masters, teachers, and loved ones are advising you, just make anything up. It doesn't have to be reasonable. Just make anything up. Make it a total fantasy. Just play with it. Make, like, the wildest story you could possibly think of, and, like, literally imagine in what world, in what specific weird circumstance would that action be completely perfect. And they're saying, why are we telling you to do this? We're telling you to do this because this is for you, right? They're like, when you give someone the benefit of the doubt, who is it for? What's the point of that? It's not for the other person. It's for you. When you're giving a stranger, especially, the benefit of the doubt, when you're trying to explain to yourself, reason to yourself why they did what they did, when you disagree with what they did, you're not doing it for them. They're long gone. You're never going to see them again. So you're not doing it for their benefit. You're doing it for you. And if it's just for you, it can be as ridiculous and silly as you want it to be. Because why not? You're doing this for your own peace of mind. That is the point of this. It's so that when you tell this story later, because your mind will want to replay this, it's when you tell this story to yourself, your calmness is not perturbed, right? You can maintain a sense of groundedness, rooted, so solid in your calmness and your levity. Because if every time, you know, like, if every time you just see someone walking their dog and you're like, oh man, I remember that time that guy was so mean to me and that was just terrible, I hated that, and you just relive that, like, if a memory of something years later is upsetting you, that's your own problem, right? That has nothing to do with the other person. That's a problem that only you are experiencing, because I guarantee you the guy walking the dog has no memory of this. He probably has no idea that he said that to me. He doesn't remember. It was just like a regular day for him. But the point is, it's like, if the point is to soothe yourself and to maintain your calmness, do whatever it takes, and it's not harming anyone. So yeah, give yourself permission to be silly and be like outlandish and make it so like ridiculous that you laugh at it instead of getting agitated at it. Do that. And they're saying the other purpose that this serves is telling yourself a crazy story is a really easy and like gentle and fun way to come back to the very humble truth that you have no idea what someone else is going through, ever. You would never be able to know 100% what someone else is going through. You'll never be able to see through someone else's eyes, no matter how empathetic you are. And they're saying, like, if I told you every detail of my life, even then, you still wouldn't know 100% what it's like to live my reality. Just like I would have no idea what it's like to live your reality. And so the point, it's like, yeah, give people grace. Sure, but also do what it takes to maintain your own calmness. And as you practice doing this outlandish, silly way of giving people grace, it will become easier. And soon the stories won't have to be so outlandish. And it'll be your natural state to be calm and to be graceful and to be loving to all the people you meet and to be respectful and understanding and compassionate even when people are rude to you. That's all for today. I would love to hear from you, and especially if you try this out, I would really love to know. Can you think of a time that someone was rude to you? And can you think of a fun fantasy world where that rude behavior is actually the perfect response? I would love to hear your tales and all the fantastical things you come up with. So please leave a comment or send me a message. I would love to chat with you. Until next time, I am wishing you well, my friend. Namaste.